amesema hana uwezo tena kwenda mahakamani. Anaenda kama nani? Umeenda kama nani? Bwana Wetangula hafai kwa speaker ya bunge ya Kenya.
Huyu Mheshimiwa William Ruto anaposema kwamba tujenge nyumba za affordable house kule Kisii, ile shamba ambayo tumeweka kando kwa hiyo affordable house, wameanza kujenga kwa wizi ambao wako nao.
Odinga said the housing levy was taken to parliament and passed by legislatures in the watch of Wetangula, and therefore his duty is done and dusted and has no business going to court.
Kama wewe ni speaker, umeshapitisha sheria, kazi yako imekwisha hapo. Sasa imebaki katikati ya serikali kuu na nini na mahakama. Sio kazi tena ya bunge tena. Wewe huwezi kwenda mahakama bila kuuliza wabunge. Speaker ni mtumishi wa bunge. Yeye ni mtumishi wa bunge. Hawezi kwenda kwa mahakama bila kuuliza idhini ya wabunge. Alienda kama nani? Ameenda kama nani?
The National Assembly, jointly with Wetangula, filed a notice to appeal the court ruling that declared the housing levy as unconstitutional. Wetangula, however, has urged President William Ruto to carry on with the housing levy and ignore the noises.
Hata ukiona wale walikuwa wanapinga mipango yako, sasa wanasema the concept is right but the methodology is wrong. Ignore the methodology, focus on the concept. Since they tell you the concept is right. Na jana tumepitia hapa kwa nyumba zinajengwa. Kulikuwa na vijana karibu 120. Mvua imenyesha lakini wanachapa kazi. Wakaambia Mheshimiwa Rais, na ulisikia, don't look back.
Wetangula moved to court with a notice expressing dissatisfaction with the Court of Appeal judgment, challenging it before the court. The notice reads, and I quote, "Take notice that the National Assembly and the Speaker of the National Assembly, the first and second applicants in Nairobi Court of Appeal, civil applicant number E577 of 2023, being dissatisfied with the decision of the Court of Appeal delivered at Nairobi 26 January 2024, intend to appeal to the Supreme Court of Kenya against the whole of the said ruling." Read the notice in part. In the Friday ruling, Appellate's Court Judge Lydia Achode, John Mativo and Paul Gashoka cited public interest in the matter, underscoring the High Court's ruling that the housing levy was introduced without a legal framework. The public participation on the bill has been going on and was concluded last week, with the Kimani Kuria-led team visiting different counties collecting views. Lookuptv.
Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has condemned Azimio chief over his recent remarks regarding the appointment of Wafula Chebukati as the Chief Justice. Mudavadi noted that the former IEBC boss has a right to nominate himself for a judge position if he so desires to do so. Speaking in Kakamega during an interdenominational church service attended by President William Ruto, Mudavadi emphasized that the recruitment process will be carried out by the Independent Judicial Service Commission, JSC.
There are people who want to always criticize the president. Oh, he has commented on the judiciary, he has commented on this. But I also want to say, before you remove the log in somebody else's eye, what about yours? Nukiri kuturiza amajira momoni yonde wakuturiza gabe momoni yoyo. Nasema hivyo kwa sababu Judicial Service Commission is also independent, and Judicial Service Commission has the right to recruit anybody who qualifies to be a judge of this republic. So it is wrong for the Azimio leadership to start determining who should the Judicial Service Commission recruit. You cannot tell us that a son of the soil in this area, if they are interested, kama ni Chebukati ama nani, if he puts his bid for the position of a judge, that is the responsibility of the Judicial Service Commission, not the responsibility of politicians to try and direct the Judicial Service Commission. these kind of contradictions are not acceptable. Kwa hivyo tusimame imara so that we can move forward and be able to move the country in the right direction.
Namibian President Hage Geingob has died at the age of 82, less than 3 weeks after it was announced he would undergo treatment for cancer. Geingob died on Sunday at Lady Pohamba Hospital in the capital. Minhoek, with his wife and his children at his side, acting President Nangolo Mbumba said in a statement posted on Gengob's official social media pages. The statement read in part, and that reads, the Namibian nation has lost a distinguished servant of the people, a liberation struggle icon, the chief architect of our constitution, and the pillar of the Namibian House. Gengob's office announced last month that he had begun treatment following the discovery of cancerous cells during a routine colonoscopy and gastroscopy. Geingob, who also served a 12-year stint as Prime Minister, had a history of health problems that preceded his election as Namibia's third president in 2014. President William RUTO has mourned Geingob as a leader who served his people with a focus and dedication.
Nimepata habari leo asubuhi kwamba tumempoteza rais wa nchi ya Namibia, na mimi nataka niwaombe kwa heshima sisi wote kwa dakika moja tusimame kwa heshima ya Rais Geingob, President wa Namibia ambaye alifariki leo asubuhi. Asante sana, na nitauliza wale wote wanaohusika, tukisha pata habari kamili tutafanya vile kwa heshima tutaweka bendera yetu nusu mlingoti kwa sababu ya kumuenzi rafiki yetu, kiongozi katika bara letu la Afrika, rais wa kule Namibia.
And the biggest quotes from Raila Amolo Odinga, if you don't listen to his entire speech, he said, "You are ready for the streets." In fact, he said, he called it no IEBC hiring. You know, and this is what he's saying. We had already agreed on it. So that court ruling should have made reference to the agreement that we made at the Bomas of Kenya in that NATCO report. Jeremiah Kioni last week said, he said the thing is, when we sit with the government and come up with some agreement, they just go and sit at the National House. And he said that by design. So the question that we're asking this morning is quite simple. Is this a RUTO-led IEBC tackle that essentially then is going to be viewed as a win for him, knowing very well that he had already completed the process of appointing the select members of that panel that was supposed to come in and give us the new IEBC commissioners? But even as we talk about this, there's also another question that lingers at the back of our minds. You see, they have to review the boundaries, the constituency boundaries, quicker that. Because next month, at the end of next month, that deadline would expire as envisioned by the Constitution. 27 members of Parliament are just about to be rendered useless. But then again, if they don't review those boundaries, there's a chance that the 2027 election is in jeopardy. A lot of things to talk about this morning, including that one for Wafula Chebukati as the CJ. I can see already Eric Mungai in the studio. I'm just waiting for Ragalo to walk into the studio this morning as well, so that we can table this conversation this morning on Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Simba. See you on the other side of this tiny little break.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya? Lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time hata angalia barabara. Mseni dereva tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe. Mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 1000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
What about mambo fantastic if not scholastic? Chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket imerudi. Ukifanya tu shopping ya shilingi 1000, wewe unaingia kwa promotion ya chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket. Watu wanaendelea kushinda ndani ya Hatia Supermarket. Mwana tata kitoko. Wewe na umeshinda nini? Yote. Sasa wewe unalala. Karibu ndani ya Hatia Supermarket uweze kuchota kwa wingi kabisa. Watu huko wanasema nini? Nakwambia kwamba chota kuchota. Unangoja nini?
Magari 7 za kushindaniwa, TV, fridge, microwave, shopping vouchers, school fees vouchers, install prizes na zawadi zingine kemkem. Chota kuchota imethaminiwa na Hetia's Oven Fresh Bakery, Gigabyte, Mount Kenya Milk, Clover's Food Products, Velvet, Magic Drink, Pwani Oil, Arenco, Fruit Juice, Masterchef, Toilex, Coolsip, Mika, Wash Ultra, Philos, Prestol, Nivea, My Choice, Ushindi, Fresh Fry, Arimis Jelly, Cabernet Water, Dettol, Ketepa, Meta, Glucose, Coca-Cola, Rosy Tissue, Big Giant, Elbins, Unilever, Fresh, Unga wa Dola, Blue Band na Pasta Star. Shindano la chota kuchota linaanza tarehe 1 Disemba hadi tarehe 10 Februari mwaka 2024.
Hatia Supermarket, a world of choice.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
So I felt, well, I've done justice to education and I needed to do something more involving. I can literally sit here for hours and tell you I moved from one company to the other, and today sitting with 7 companies, and we all frame it up with real-time global.
What is this one promise that you want every other client to receive when they work with you?
That we will always deliver whatever you ask us to do on time. That's it.
Lynn Athol, who is the CEO, founder, Real Time Global. Well, at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms, my name is Simba Kiage. We have a lot to tackle from now all the way up to 9:30 this morning, and that is essentially just going to be encompassed around the conversations on IEBC. This is what we do know currently, as it is the update. Last week, Wednesday, towards the evening, the court ruled that the selection panel that was put in place by one Dr. President William RUTO back in 2022 and fully reconstituted in 2023 was supposed to come in and conduct those elections to avert a constitutional crisis. And this is a constitutional crisis. The constitutional crisis essentially stems from the fact that they have a deadline to review constituency boundaries by the end of next month, failure to which over 27 members of parliament, or around 27 members of parliament, then will be declared illegitimate by law. Number two, if then the review is not done, then any other person can walk into court and say, well, do not do the next general election, or can you postpone it until maybe after you're done with the review of the boundaries. That's where we find ourselves now. Conversations around where we've got it wrong, because there's a NATCO report that is tabled at the National Assembly as we speak that is supposed to guide the appointment of that selection panel has not been opened. Why? We're going to wait and see. So joining us this morning then to help us go through this particular conversation is Eric Mungai, as Eric Ragalo walks into the studio. Mr. Mungai, how are you doing, sir?
I'm well. Good morning.
Good morning.
This has been, last week was a good week.
Yeah.
Especially for Baba supporters. He said two things which I think are very important. One is that the affordable housing was his idea. I think that was a very good statement coming from Baba. And second, here he's going to a return of maandamano. It's interesting. Let's see how that plays out.
Let's see how that plays out.
Most interesting also in the dailies, I can see there is a crisis of MP seats. I think we'll be discussing that because we are likely to have another Maraga movement. You remember when he ruled that Parliament, when he recommended to the President that Parliament should be dissolved because of the inability to raise the 2/3 as required in the Constitution. So we are getting into another moment. We'll get to discuss that. But first is to say greetings to the viewer this Monday morning. Of course, we are always optimistic. This will be a great week ahead. You can see that traffic now, by the way, traffic is now building up. I am not an economist, so I'm not sure that that's a good economic indicator. That people are on the road. You can see even Ragalo is late, courtesy most likely of the same. So maybe that's a sign of good things to come.
That's it.
Thank you and karibu.
Anyway, so that is essentially the background of the issues that we're going to look at this morning. But the question that we're asking is whether indeed this is a win for one President, Dr. William RUTO, now that his panel has been given the powers to conduct those interviews. Remember, last year those applications were made. So we do not know whether this particular panel again is going to gazette that particular announcement for our ABC commissioners. Anyway, let's take a look at this particular story then. Once we are done with it, we come back and table that conversation.
As to debate the NADCO report, ODM leader Raila Odinga has rubbished a court ruling that okayed the IBC selection panel to resume its work.
Nimesikia juzi mahakama moja anasema ati ile kamati ya mbele huko ya kuteua wale wanachama wa IBC ataendelea kufanya kazi yake. Nasema hiyo ni upuzi. Ni upuzi. Ile kamati hawezi kufanya kazi, manake ilikuwa tayari imevunjwa na bunge. Sasa hii ripoti ya wakina Wandai na Kalonzo ukienda mbele ya bunge ipitishwe, ndio tutaanza mambo ya IEBC. Lakini bado tunawadai mambo ya gharama ya maisha. Gharama ya maisha bado tunawadai.
Speaking during the registration drive in Nairobi, the former Prime Minister now says he will call for protest if at all the issues discussed during the national dialogue are not looked at, insisting that the cost of living is still top priority of the opposition's agenda.
Tukaweka jopo kazi kwenda kuzungumza na hawa watu. Waliongea kwa muda. Wakubaliana kwa mambo manne tuliweka. Kwanza, gharama ya maisha irudi wapi?
The ODM leader said the process can only start after the NADCO report has been ratified by Parliament.
Hiyo report ikipita kwa bunge wiki ijayo, utafungua saba. Pili, walikubaliana ya kwamba mambo ya kuunda upya ya tume ya uchaguzi mpaka tusirikishwe, mpaka tukubaliane na majina yote. Sawa sawa.
Justice Sunday directed that the current IBC selection panel moves with speed and immediately recruit new commissioners, including the chair. The process was put on hold following the constitution of the bipartisan talk. The High Court's decision followed a case filed by Adan Mohammed, who claimed that failure to recruit the IBC commissioners in time had violated the rights of the constituents who were to hold by-elections.
Pretty much. All right, let's take a look at what the Daily Nation is talking about this morning. Sheila, if you can, then you can share that particular screenshot so we can take a look at it together. Now, this is what they're saying, that the country is hurtling towards a constitutional crisis with a 12-year deadline imposed by the Constitution for review of constituency borders lapsing next month. A report before Parliament compiled by representatives of President RUTO and opposition leader Raila Odinga during bipartisan talks to end anti-government protests hold the key to averting the emergency that threatens legitimacy of at least 27 constituencies. But here's the thing, Mr. Mungai, but I want us to begin from here. Has the Daily Nation got it wrong? Because if you go back and read that particular submission right there, that a report before Parliament compiled by representatives of President RUTO and opposition leader Raila Odinga during bipartisan talks to end anti-governmental protests holds the key to averting the emergency that threatens legitimacy of at least 27 constituencies. But that's not law, and the courts made a ruling last Wednesday. So shouldn't they be making reference to that ruling by the courts?
Thank you, Simba. It's important that the viewer understands the issue of delimitation of boundaries so that it becomes easier to understand the sort of crisis that we are in. One is that the Constitution under Article 89 gives powers to the IEBC to conduct delimitation of boundaries or review of boundaries. Now, you realize that under the constituencies, the Constitution caps them at 290. Now, the only thing the Constitution allows the IEBC to do, one, is to review the names and boundaries of constituencies. So that means IEBC cannot vary the number. So the number is cast on stone in terms of the Constitution. However, when it comes to wards, the IEBC can review the names, boundaries, and the number of wards. But in terms of the number of constituencies, and Article 89 does not give that right to IEBC. Yes. Now, the conversation around that is important because, for instance, when you're dividing resources, say CDF, yes, then you're doing that against a number of constituencies. But the challenge then becomes there are some constituencies that have a bigger population than other constituencies. And all of them are going to get bursaries or are going to get allocation of CDF in terms of the number of constituencies that are available regardless. So then delimitation and review becomes very important because then it allows, so the constitution sets it as population quota. So you get the total number according to the census, and that is what you divide by the number of constituencies. Then you get to know the average number of people that are supposed to be in a constituency. Now, why that is important then is because according to Schedule 6 of the Constitution, it is what was protecting the 27 constituencies, okay?
Yes.
And a part of them includes Lamu and the others. Because by then, they had not reached the population quota that is required for them to be a constituency.
No, sir.
Now, there is a risk that, so the Constitution protected them in the first review. But in the second review, they are not protected. That means that they are at risk of being scrapped and merged either with others or others added into them, so that then they can get into the population quota. Now, those MPs then risk losing their seats if there is no intervention. Now, you've asked a question, so I was just explaining the background so that it is important, which now comes to the question that you have asked in terms of the document that is in Parliament concerning the bipartisan talks. Now, the deadline for delimitation is by March 5. IEBC has already given a report, and they actually faced a lot of challenges while trying to review the boundaries. To some extent, even their staff were being beaten and physically assaulted, because the issue of boundaries is a very emotive issue. Because boundary that sometimes shares communities, or sometimes you're alienating a community from another community. So it's a very emotive issue. And why the bipartisan talks then are important is because then there is what we call political goodwill to forestall a constitutional crisis. Now, for us to be able, March 5th, to be honest, is not reasonable. I do not think that we can get IBC commissioners by March 5th and then promulgate because remember, it's also a political process. Simply because IBC has said we want to review and do it this way does not necessarily mean that it is acceptable to also the stakeholders that are involved. So it's a process that involves a bit of pull and tug, because the Constitution allows and the Constitution demands that you must do public participation. Now, for us then, under, I think it's under Article, is it 290 or Article what? Yes. I'll get the article for you. There is room for amendment of the Constitution through parliamentary approach. And this is what some legal experts are recommending, that so long as you're able to raise 2/3, then you can vary the date for delimitation. Now, raising 2/3 in the political environment that we are in will require the document that you are talking about, which is, there needs to be first a consensus on how we divide the IBC commissioners. And secondly, there needs to be a consensus so that both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio can whip their members to raise 2/3 to amend the Constitution, so that then we can have a review of the boundaries.
That's what the question begins, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because then, Mr. Mungai, we do know very well that those two teams already have a consensus on who the members are going to be in that particular selection panel. Then you wonder why, knowing very well that this is exactly where we were, knowing very well that that March deadline was drawing closer, you wonder why somebody just didn't raise that particular motion in the National House and say the top of our agenda when we resume back from the recession that we were under is to come in and talk about this particular issue that Kenya is facing right now.
So the reality is this, that yes, this has been forthcoming, and we all knew that this would come. IEBC had wanted to forestall this. And they had gone ahead, even without the presence of commissioners, they had gone ahead to collect views from the Kenyan public.
Yes.
So that they, in an essence, they were seeking to beat the timelines. But you know that we live in a country where, politically speaking, we don't always seem to agree. And it seems that some people are happy when we forestall the process. And some people are happy when, you know, things appear like they have stalled. And that's the crisis we have been in. Because this is not, from the last 12 years that we did delimitation, we knew that 12 years deadline was going to be in March 5th, 2024. So it's not a surprise.
Yes.
But remember, immediately after elections, we went into sort of a political stalemate in terms of the IEBC commissioners. In fact, it is so bad now that there are constituencies and wards that lack representation because their member of parliaments have passed. Yes. And IEBC cannot, members of county assemblies and parliament have passed on, and IEBC cannot conduct elections, which in essence constitutionally is a disservice to the people of those wards and constituencies because of lack of representation, which is a constitutional right. And therefore, I feel that, yes, we knew we were going to get here.
Yes.
I mean, that was obvious to everyone. But also, politically speaking, this is an opportunity also for Azimio to be able to negotiate for a carrot.
But what are they negotiating? They're already negotiated for it, which is why I wanted to ask you. I mean, they're already negotiated for it. They went back to the streets, and then after that, they were taken to the bombers of Kenya. They did agree on the framework to get this election panel that was supposed to come in and then do the interviews for the IEBC commissioners. So my question is that when you look at who essentially would need this to happen, and even President Dr. William Ruto would like for the review of the constituency boundaries to happen as fast as it can, because essentially when talking about majority again in the National House, you don't want to stare at a scenario where 27 members of parliament are getting essentially illegitimate on the face of an IEBC review that you can actually get done and dusted with it. Is this a tackle from President Dr. William Ruto, knowing very well how important that NATCO document is? Jeremiah Kioni called it last week. This is what he said, Mungai. He said, it's by design. It is by design. That somebody somewhere knew very well that that particular report is going to go back to Parliament and just sit right there. Let me take you back to the comment of one, the COG. That is one, Anne Waiguru. And this is what she said, and trying to paraphrase as much as I can. She spoke heavily about this particular issue, but this is what he said, that indeed, that NATCO report is as quite important as it can be to the Republic of Kenya on other issues. But his ruling by the courts is just meant to avert a constitutional crisis. So there's a feeling, Mr. Mungai, that, well, on that one issue for IEBC, done and dusted. Let's move to the rest of them.
Well, it's, you know, politics, there is, I always say in politics, when there is a tortoise on the table, it's gotten there by design. It's, you see, you know very well that no tortoise has the capacity to be on top of a table. So someone must have put it there.
Yes.
But even though the quagmire as it is in terms of honoring Article 89 of the Constitution and Schedule 6, even though it is as it is right now, I can tell you for a fact, and this is what I love about this process. If you look at the 27 constituencies, they are cross-cutting. They are not constituencies that say are in, say, Central Province, so that you can say then we are punishing the people of Central Province, let's remove them. Yes. They are cross-cutting. We have constituencies in the coastal region, we have constituencies in the western region. So the beauty is the 27 constituencies are cross-cutting across the country. And therefore, there is more to be lost by all parties, and there is more to be gained. So in essence, this is how you look at it. Say, for instance, in the coastal region, if you were to say remove Lamu constituency, whose voting block are you chipping away? and what are the repercussions for you in terms of the forthcoming elections. If, say, for instance, you are to remove a constituency in northeastern province, whose constituency are you chipping away, and what are the political consequences moving forward? And therefore, all parties, especially because in the next coming years we are headed to an election, it is a political potato that really everyone wants to handle very well. And therefore, the NADCO report, remember, where we left the NADCO report, we left it at a point where some people had refused to sign from the Azimio side. Key among them, Eugene Wamalwa, had refused to sign. And we left it at a point where Baba said he's still reviewing the contents of the document and he shall give his opinion later after he reads the NADCO report. Well, I would assume it's a lengthy report. He's been unable to finish the report up to now. But the reality is, in that report, there was sort of a consensus, or there were proposals on how to come up with the IEBC commissioners. Okay? Now, the truth and reality is, politically there will have to be a consensus on how they appoint IEBC commissioners, and secondly, on how the delimitation of boundaries is carried out. Now, what I know first and foremost will be agreed upon is on the IEBC commissioners, because then, remember, as I said, the court has made a ruling, okay? So they have to agree on that. Secondly, then, they have to agree on the delimitation, specifically also on the protection of the 27 constituencies. That they will have to agree on. Where I know there will be contention is then on the, because what will happen is that they will extend the deadline. That is the most likely outcome, because they will be unable to agree on the delimitation of the constituencies, because then there will be a lot of pull and tug, because remember, you're removing resources from one constituency and putting them in another constituency. Now, they are unlikely to agree on that now. Now, because they are unlikely to agree on it, and when I say they, I mean the political class, what they will do is extend the deadline for delimitation. So we could extend, say, by another 12 years or 10 years or whatever number of years, because we are likely to agree on it now. The easiest and lowest hanging fruit is to protect the 27 first. Okay? Once we protect the 27, then we come and ask ourselves, is this the right time to conduct delimitation? Then because it's a political hot potato, then they will say, no, let us extend to the foreseeable future, so that we sort of pass the problem to another house in future. But I know they will agree on the commissioners, and we will agree on protecting the 27 constituencies.
Yes, that's it. Let's go back to the implication then of that court ruling that happened on Wednesday, Mungai. I mean, Raila Amolo Odinga and any other person in that particular parliament knows very well that there's a report that they really have to ratify and really debate and graduate into law on it. And on these particular issues, sitting right there is the NADCO report that is essentially has agreements on how the selection panel is going to be constituted before then they start their interviews. Raila Amolo Odinga has already spoken on it. He's already said, if they dare start the hiring process, we're going to go back to the streets again. And him saying, well, there's something special that's just about to happen, before going on to declare that if we get wind of the IEBC selection panel doing those interviews, we're going to go back to the streets. What would Dr. President William Ruto do? What would he tell the IEBC selection panel? Remember, he had already picked the officials according to law. All of them are seated and waiting to begin their job. What would he tell them upon this court's ruling?
Yes, I have heard the Right Honorable Raila Odinga threaten that should the president go ahead and appoint commissioners, then he will go back to the streets. Now, I don't believe him, and I don't trust him. And I don't believe nor trust him because that's a rallying call to say, let us negotiate. it's not necessarily a rallying call to say I'll go to the street.
But
One, he's speaking to the supporters,
yeah,
and telling them we will go to the streets.
Does it?
But also he's speaking to the president and saying, I want us to negotiate.
On what? We had already negotiated.
You see,
yeah,
they had negotiated. What the NADCO report gives recommendations.
Does it?
That are supposed to be discussed at the National Assembly level.
And heavily agreed on by both sides, was seated at that particular table.
Correct.
Yes.
But the thing is, for him to, you see, it's like this. We want to appoint commissioners, okay? There are 7 commissioners. You see, the 3 have already, their term has already ended constitutionally, and then we had the infamous Cherela 4,
yes,
okay? Now, the question is this. One, who has the majority in terms of the commissioners that we appoint? Secondly, whom do we actually appoint to that seat, courtesy of those that will apply? And that's why I'm saying it's not just a question of number, it's a question of who do we appoint. Because remember, this same commission is the one that is going to take us into the next general elections. And therefore, I know the president has made a pronouncement himself that it doesn't matter the commissioners who will be there. Because either way, the issue of commissioners has always been there every time we go into an election.
Yes.
That's why we removed Isaac Hassan, who was the chair of the commission, unceremoniously. We've had interparliamentary groups deciding on who are going to be the commissioners. So the issue of commissioners is really a political issue. Now the president has said he doesn't matter who is going to become a commissioner. He doesn't care. But the reality is he does care who is going to become a commissioner. You recall,
yes,
that during elections, or rather after elections,
yes,
we had Raphael Tuju. It was exposed that Raphael Tuju had gone to meet several commissioners, and they had gone to discuss the outcome of the elections. And infamously, we had the Cherela 4 issuing a press briefing. So it tells you if you put commissioners who lack integrity, we are going to have a repeat of what happened during the previous elections.
That's it.
And therefore, Raila Odinga is only threatening so that the president can come to the table and they can negotiate.
That's it.
But my concern is it's really a very selfish move.
Yes.
Because
from Raila Amolo Odinga?
Yes, from Raila Amolo Odinga.
Is it not the same thing from the president as well? He should have already pronounced himself on this particular issue. Because it's indeed true that he did say that once that particular report, and I'm quoting him by the way, that once that particular report then comes from the Bomas of Kenya and goes back to the National House, he was going to make sure that a side of the government, that's the Kenya Kwanza government, was going to pass it and quickly at that. That's what he said, Mr. Mungai. But even as the courts made a ruling on this particular one last week, he's not come out to talk about it at all.
But why does he need to come out and talk about it? If the court has already issued a declaration, okay, the president has no business mentioning on the same.
Yes.
But he has really no business. And I am saying that in as far as the NADCO report is concerned, there is political goodwill to advance the discussion, okay?
Yes.
And whatever the outcome, we have a national outcome, something that we all agree and rally upon.
Yes.
So the president, as I've said, the president has pronounced himself before.
Yes.
He really doesn't care who becomes commissioner or who doesn't become commissioner. It is only Raila who is concerned on who becomes commissioner, because we have seen track record during the previous election. You remember, was it still Chebukati's commission where Raila refused to run for election?
That's on the second round.
On the second round, he refused. It was still Chebukati's commission, and therefore he always has an issue with the commission, regardless. And therefore, I'm saying it does not really matter. Even if I can tell you for sure, if today you are to go and say, okay, of the 7 commissioners, I give Raila 6, he will still refuse.
On the basis of this particular topic, I mean, just indulge me this morning, Mr. Mungai. I mean, you're the president. You've already allowed a Bomas of Kenya meeting to go on and give you a NADCO report. It's already been done and dusted. You would like to think that the first thing that you do as a president is to rally your soldiers to make sure that at least 1 or 2 areas that directly touch on your administration are essentially looked into and quick. I mean, we've been waiting for them to talk about this NATCO report, to the point that Jeremiah Kione is the one who's saying, by design. As it currently stands, that particular panel, by the way, they'll be lawfully doing those interviews if they said they're doing them today.
But who was pushing the NATCO report? It was Raila. It was Raila. You see, largely, this is Raila's document. It's not really Ruto's document. Remember, the Kenya Kwanza team did not go to the negotiating table because they wanted to go to the negotiation table. When the rallies and maandamanos and people started getting killed on the streets, there was a general consensus that let's have those talks.
Yes.
We held the talks, which the Azimio team disowned, and Raila said he was going to read.
Yes.
I would imagine that the president is waiting for Raila to finish reading the document so that he can bring his input, because as far as the Kenya Kwanza government is concerned, Raila has never finished reading the report.
At this point, then, let me introduce the man who's been stuck in traffic for good, and we love his shoes. Have you looked at the shoes? Yeah? You would like to...
They are shoes to, they have to be comfortable to go back to Mandamani.
Anyway, Ragalo, how are you doing this morning, man?
Very well.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you've just come in right now. I'm just going to throw you into the deep end this morning. Jeremiah Kione is saying that this particular report that's called the NATCO report is going to rot in that National House, because he's saying that by design, somebody knew very well that even on these key issues that we're talking about this morning, like the IEBC issue now, that we're standing under constitutional crisis, that particular report is not going to be implemented. Let me also put you up to speed with a quote of the CG, that is the chair of governors, one Anway Guru, who, upon that ruling by the courts, giving power to that selection panel by one President Dr. William Ruto, she said this, that NATCO report is quite important. There are so many other issues on it, but on this one, they made a ruling on it to avoid a constitutional crisis. Therefore, let's talk about the rest of them, but the IEBC, in as much as she is concerned, is a done and dusted issue. Is it by design that that particular report, Ragalo, has not been opened at the National House?
Thank you, Bwana Simba. Eric, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's good to see you.
We've not met, Bwana.
Good to see you.
Merry Christmas.
You see, it's very heavy. Yeah. You can see Ragalo is very heavy.
But he said, stress is also could be a symptom.
No, the economy is doing well, at least for Ragalo.
I told Simba last week that in medicine we have a stress-related weight gain, which are there.
Yeah.
And you never know what's happening to me.
But we hope you're not stressed.
I am late. I'm sorry to the viewers. I was held up in very important issues, work related. So I woke up very early at 3 a.m. Thank you. Politically, I've had my friend talk here, and I want to remind him a bit of history. It's good that he talks everything Raila, because he's born when Raila was already in politics. Raila started politics at his very early age. At 12 years, Raila had the first meeting with Nyerere, going with his father, being his father at arm. And since then, Raila have grown into politics from a young guy to whatever he is now at his age. Politically, Raila has had change of so many things in the country. And I remember to run up to 1997 elections. Actually, after 97 elections, Raila didn't go to court. Kibaki went to court. And though we had how the way Akina Baba pushed the thing, and then we had IPPG. Remember Sulumeti, Mutava Musiemi, Raila himself, Orengo, Anyang' Nyong'o, Martha Karua, and many others, Imanyara, were in the group that pushed for this. And IPPG formed the ECK of 1997 towards 2002. We had Kirahara Mutu, who was a member of that group. We had famous Zacchaeus Chesoni, who left in 1992 to 1997, we got Kivuitu. Then Kivuitu, we had Kiharamutu and the other guys. And 2000, and what was the issue of IPPG was the parties that were involved then. And you had to have a certain number in parliament to be given authority to do what? To nominate someone to be in the election board, okay, which is the ECK.
Yes.
And people brought their representative so that there could be that open election, okay? That is what brought us to 2002 election, where Raila won. I will not say Kibaki won, because Kibaki was not in the country all through the campaign to the election. Raila won the election for Kibaki, not Kibaki won the election. That is the language that should be put, because Kibaki campaigned once and he never came to campaign again. So Raila won the 2002 election for Kibaki. Under what? Under ECK formulated under IPPG that brought the names. Then came the what we call people get laissez-faire and they get comfortable. So going to 2007 election, we saw what happened. Raila won the election. Kibaki stole and took it by force. And we saw what happened. So from there, the successive governments killed the IPPG mood,
yes,
where people would bring representative into the board. So we had, this clam has always been there. We need representations in the board. So 2022 election is not one of those that we should even forget. We saw what happened with the board, divided 4:3. And how do you heal this then? 4 were, no, this is not the true election results. 3, this is the true election results. So who is the majority? Anyway, that is under the bridge. So that tells you we really needed a cohesive IEBC. And cohesive IEBC is bring a team that everyone has agreed about. You don't have to go to war about this. It's common sense. If this is what happened, we need to have a new team. Yes, there is no team totally. There is none. We have elections that have not been done now. That should be done. There are places where they don't even have an MP. There is an MP who died. Have we had an election there?
No.
Because we don't have an IBC.
Yes.
So now, how do we treat this? These parties should come. The court ruled on what was on the table. But when you agree, and that's why court tells you, agree outside court. If you had an agreement outside court,
yes,
it doesn't tell you that the court will not agree with your agreement. So when someone comes and tells you, at the court already ruled about it, but you can tell the court, hey, hold on. Me and my wife, we can agree about this. Let's agree, we'll come back to you. The court will hold on. So if people can sit down and agree, let's bring nani toa nani, waipa toa nani, we toa ngapi, let's bring a team. Then the election will be done, people knowing we have representation. So why is it an issue?
So this is, Ragalo, this is what the issue is, that the courts were quite aware that you had already agreed outside the court, that there was a report that was essentially signed from the Bomas Kenya, that's the NATCO report. In that, on REBC, there was a consensus that both sides had agreed on how to constitute this select panel.
Yes.
But nothing was done on it.
No,
we have a deadline for next month.
Actually, they did not agree. Yes. They made proposals. There were actually like 3 proposals on how to on how to select IBC commissioners.
That's it.
Now, of the 3 proposals that were made, the Parliament was supposed to agree on whichever they were supposed to agree on, which is yet to happen.
Which is yet to happen. So Bagalo, did the courts get it wrong by saying we are going to give power to that selection panel by Dr. President William Ruto, as opposed to pointing out to, could you speed the process of the NADCO report?
NADCO report, has it gone to Parliament and passed?
Actually, there is a court ruling against
Has
that
it
report.
gone to Parliament and passed?
No, but was tabled.
So that is a document. It's not an approved document. So court cannot rule on it insistively, and insistively it is still a document under a court case. So what is directly involved here is that there is a select panel. Is it constitutional? That's what the court was looking at.
Yes.
But that other document, I would say right now, it's not a document approved by the Parliament. So when it is approved by the Parliament, it becomes a document that now can be related to and can be used to write memorandas and many other things for us to follow. But right now it is not. And for that matter, I would still tell you, if that document would come to me for election in a referendum, I'll drop it. Because I didn't go to Mandamano so that CDF can be added. That was not a reason for Mandamano. And why would I give MPs money whether their function is not being financial officers? Their function is representation, legislation, you know their functions. So to me, CDF should never even have appeared after Kibaki. We should never have had CDF. What we should have is a rational government that does its things properly. Then we should not have CDF because it is duplication of roles.
There's a question that I asked, and Mungai, I'm going to come to you. There's a question that I asked Mungai just before you walked in. I mean, in this particular issue, it's not like we only have one side in it. We have azimio allied members of parliament seated in that house. So why couldn't they push for a motion to at least have this particular issue for IEBC tabled in front of the National House immediately after they came back from their holidays?
It is politics now. Do we want it or we don't want it? The issue is, if we want it, who will it favor? Is it going to favor me or is it going to favor Mungai? If it will favor Mungai, I will not want it tabled. And if it will favor Eric, Mungai wouldn't want it to be tabled.
Who's he going to favor? He looked at he's going to favor Azimio coalition. I mean, they're the ones who went in and gave those proposals.
Definitely, it will favor Azimio.
Yes. So why couldn't?
Why would it favor Azimio?
So why couldn't
all
they
these
table
parties
it?
under Azimio are strong parties.
Yes.
Look at them. They are strong parties. Wiper has the third biggest number after ODM and UDA. So where UDA we don't have Jubilee.
What do you mean?
Jubilee has how many MPs?
No, it's Jubilee. It's the third. It's the third largest.
Okay, we have Jubilee. Then we have Wiper.
Yes.
We have actually now look ODM number 2, Jubilee number 3, Wiper number 4. Okay.
Yes.
Then you are UDA. I keep saying URP. I may say URP because it's just URP. then
it's UDA.
Then whatever URP has the UDA.
Yes.
For the Kenya and Amani. For the Kenya has how many MPs? 3. Let me laugh. And they can make a loud noise in parliament. Kwanza their presidential candidate who's never run for presidency makes the loudest noise. But he always ran for presidency in limbo. Anyway, Mudavadi has how many MPs? Countable. So how many MPs do we have in Wiper? In Jubilee and in ODM. So it will cheat the number to who? So you will find if they are sharing numbers, it will not sharing numbers in parliament, but sharing number as the people you brought. It doesn't matter if Waliruka, now Jalangot becomes ODM, it doesn't matter he's on that side. Now the number in parliament reads ODM. So you'll find ODM will bring more people with Jubilee and Wiper than the other 3. So that is the fear. Eric, is it not? That's the fear.
So my question is then, about Mr. Mungai, knowing that we've gone to the Bomas of Kenya, spent taxpayers' money. We have a NATCO report that has proposals now to settle this issue for IEBC. Then why is Raila Amolo Odinga making noise in the streets if he couldn't marshal his soldiers in the house to have this one tabled so they could get a way forward?
I told you, you see, you must admire Raila. He has learned how to play a card with his supporters, depending on his interests.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And I told you, the reason why he's making a pronouncement now, one is to prepare his supporters for Maandamano, but secondly...
To what end? Mr. Mga, you
no,
can't...
of course, no, he has already said if the president goes ahead and his team to appoint commissioners, he's going
then
back
he's going
to
to go back to the
Maandamano.
street, fine, but then to what end?
No,
to what end?
No, because he has realized that when you trade with your supporters, government tends to listen, because government has a constitutional right to protect life and property. So if you go to the streets, you're likely to get a hearing. Now Raila is sending a message to two key people. One, to his supporters, be ready. Okay, if you ask his supporters what they have to do with IBC commissioners, they don't know, but nevertheless, because Baba has said, they are likely to respond. Secondly, he's sending a message to the president and his team. Now, what message is he sending to the president? He's saying, guys, I know what you're about to do, and I want a part of it.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Is that,
now he's using that as leverage. Yes. He's using that as leverage so that he's simply telling them, this is what I want. In the event that you refuse, these are the consequences.
But what he wants on this particular issue is already in public domain.
Of course, if you look at the history of Raila and IBC commissioners, just like Ragalo has explained very well the history of electoral commissions in Kenya.
Yes.
Regardless, and you see, this is what concerns me. It doesn't matter who becomes commissioner. So long as Raila does not win, it will not matter whether all those commissioners he chose them himself. It does not matter. But even though it does not matter, he must have a hand, just like he has always done, in who becomes commissioner. Now, there are two contentious issues here. One is the number of commissioners that they will negotiate to get. Secondly, the number is not just as important, but secondly, it is who then becomes a commissioner. You get the point? Because even who is very critical on who becomes commissioner, the number is not just enough. You can have 4 commissioners, but who are they? And this is where, as a country, we go back to the default position. Which tribe are they? Because you see, as a country, unfortunately, those are our parameters. Which tribe are they? What is their history? Where have they been? And that is why the NADCO report was suggesting, look, can we have first a panel, the interviewing panel, constituted of different bodies? And the bodies that they proposed then was, one of them was ISPAC. Okay? Because we are talking about numbers at the end of the day. You remember the Cherela 4? They had a challenge with numbers. So they had recommended ISPAC. Secondly, they had recommended LSK, the Law Society of Kenya, because you know elections is a legal, mostly it's a legal issue. They had suggested the National Council of Churches of Kenya. Because of apparently moral...
In fact, that national council should not even be part of this.
So I'm going to come back to that, Ragalo.
Religious issues.
Yes. There's also the political parties. Why religion? There's also the political parties liaison committee.
It is deemed that we are so religious, and part of our being religious, you know, because we are going to heaven, we are unlikely to steal on earth. Okay. I love it. That is the assumption. But whether or not it's true or not, it's neither here nor there. And then they had suggested political parties.
Yes.
Now, as to why we cannot agree on that in Parliament also baffles me as an onlooker.
Yes.
Because as far as we were concerned, the NADCO report was done and dusted.
But Ragalo, just before we go on Attorney Breather, that's the question, the same question that I'm asking you. Ragalo, could you be clear this morning? I mean, we've gone back to the Bomas of Kenya. We come up with the NATCO report. Raila Amolo Odinga sent his people to the Bomas of Kenya. Kalonzo Musyoka was there. His team was there. The entire secretariat was there. They came up with proper proposals that were representative of the parties or the collusions feeling on how to get the member committees that are supposed to come in and give us the interviews for those commissioners. So why again would you say, if you hire, I'll go back to the street to do what? When we do know very well, the only thing that you should be pushing for is to ratify this NATCO report.
For you to win a Kenyan election, one, control the police.
Yes.
Two, control judiciary. Three, control electoral commission.
Are you saying the voters are not important?
You win election. There's someone who said, a politician, actually Governor Meru, former, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes. It is said time and again, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes. So, who controls the police today? It's well said and done. Who controls judiciary? Who has not seen? So what is remaining is get your people into electoral commission. Then from there, why do you have to go for election? Do you know why the last election has the highest number of drops of people who didn't attend election?
Yes.
You would hear people in the city say, tunajua already ishachukuliwa, ishaenda. And actually, it went the way they were saying. So, why is the opposition pushing for the representation in this team?
Yes, sir.
Because they had a representation in the document that offered that we have that team. So in that team that is to be made, we have to have representation also. Fine. You can have commissioners there.
Yes.
But who employs? Who are the employees in the commission? Who controls the employees? The CEO. Who employs the CEO? And CEO actually also acts as a commissioner.
Yes.
So the issue is the control of the commission. It's not election. So he who controls the commission wins an election. Unless you have a Maraga in the judiciary, so is in the commission, and decides, I will do it my way. And I will stand with it my way. That's the only day the commission will give us a good number. Maraga was under pressure to make Uhuru president. But Maraga told his commissioners, so the judges, let me call it commissioners anyway, that we are going to do this report and we have to stand with the people. That is why Maraga read the report alone. This other one, the report was not even read by Koome. It was read by Lenaona and others. And we were thoroughly abused. So, issue here is who will win the election 2027.
That's what it is.
The opposition has already lost the police. The opposition have already lost judiciary. And judiciary is still going to, they are going to lose more because the judiciary is going to have more changes. And if you don't do what the government wants, you will not work there. You will get cases. Like now, Koome is supposed to be removed. And I told you on set here, it's not issue about anything. It is Koome going. You remember you said that? Koome anatolewa. After one day, actually, I sent you that thing on WhatsApp. Koome is now getting...
It's actually
so now...
wants to get out.
Yeah, and now everybody knows Koome is getting out. Either Chebukati or Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, one of the two is becoming the Chief Justice. Then, after that, the person who remains is the seat of who? Of Muturi. Muturi leaves, Lenaola takes. I'm giving you, Muturi will become a minister, then Lenaola takes the seat, then we are done. So after we are done, now remains IBC. So from there, don't vote, wait for who to be announced.
You've given up to
it is being realistic.
You can't give up. You can't give up this. I mean, it's not even clear whether all this is. I'm going to talk about
it. Is clear. It's clear, my friend. For you, Simba, for you to win an election, I've run for MCA. I've run for Member of Parliament. And I can tell you, for you to win an election, you have to have control of so many things. Even ukiwa uko mashinani. For you to win an election, lazima uone wazee.
That's it.
Lazima ukae na watu fulani.
Because
the election is not won by making noise on top of a vehicle.
That's it. It doesn't stop there. But we're going to come back and talk about it because there's already a lot of noise about the position of the CJ now in this particular fight between the executive and judiciary. We're going to talk about that shortly because Musalia Mudavadi is also calling it stupid. There's also moves that are not essentially envisioned in the Constitution with now the Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Juan Wetangula, also going to court to appeal the ruling of the courts on the affordable housing issue. We're going to talk about that. But once we come back, the question is going to be, are the streets going to be the solution? Right here on The Morning Drift, I'm joined by Ragalo and Mungai as we weigh in on RUTO's IEBC tackle. What is it going to be once we come back?
Mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Mbaya. Wewe kwani unibidi dereva anaendesha gari vibaya, lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time hata angalia barabara. Iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa twende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Kiangazi imedhiri sana katika area hii yetu ya Laikipia. Mara mingi sana katika Laikipia kuna wafugaji na kuna wakulima. Hakuna yule ambaye amesaidika, hata wakulima pia hawajasaidika na wafugaji pia hawajasaidika. Lakini kwa siku ya leo tunasema kwamba RUTO Foundation imetusaidia sana kwa sababu inalisha jamii ambaye hawana nguvu ya kupata lishe mahali moja au nyingine.
Tumekuwa tunalala hoi. Ukweli kabisa. Mimi usiamini. Hata mtu mwingine jinsi tumeleta hapo usiku akuwa amesimia. Akuwa na siku 3 hajaumwa kitu. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru sana RUTO. Leo watoto wengi ameshiba.
Nashukuru Mungu kwa RUTO Foundation siku ya leo. Maana wamekuja at least manyumba 100 leo na 10 itaweza kunuka kitunguu jioni ya leo. Tulikuwa na njaa, si mchezo, ilikuwa na njaa, si ya ile ya kusema iko njaa.
Ya kwanza tumekuwa na watoto ambao wameshikwa na hata watu wazima na utapia mlo, na pia tukiangalia hii ni area ambayo imejaa watu ambao wana rely na mifugo mingi imeweza kuisha kwa sababu ya kiangazi, na tunashukuru sana the RUTO Foundation kwa msaada wao ambao wameweza. Asanteni sana.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
All right. Welcome back to the Morning Victory. We're still with Eric Ragalo and Eric Mungai looking at what we're saying on IEBC in crisis. Those are the questions that we're asking. Raila Amolo Odinga is threatening to go back to the streets if that particular select committee that was put in place by one Dr. President William Ruto, PhD, essentially starts the hiring process, because they were essentially given the green light by the court's ruling last week. Now, there's a question that we got to ask here, because Dr. President William Ruto this morning is complaining about how ineffective majority of legislators are, complaining about the things or his projects, but not wanting to discuss them in Parliament. It's the same question that we're asking this morning, that even though he's complaining about them not discussing these issues, why has he not come out to complain about them not discussing a report that was tabled at the National Assembly? Case in point, the NATCO report. Let's take a look at his complaints. We'll come back and continue with the conversation this morning.
Tuko na mambo ya bure. Viongozi wengine wanakuja wanaongelesha raia mambo ya hewa ya bure. Mtu anakuja hapa anasema hapana, unajua sasa kampuni yetu inataka kuuzwa, kampuni yetu inataka kuuzwa. Hata mwingine alikuja kunipigia kelele hapo. Mjumbe mwingine. Kelele tu, hewa ya bure. Tawe. Sasa wakati nimemuona kwanza maajabu. Ile tawe anasema hapa, anasema tu kwa baraza. Siku ile mimi nilipeleka kufutilia mbali the 117 billion bunge. Huyo mtu ananiambia tawe hapa na makelele na siasa ya ujinga. Hakukuwa hata bunge siku hiyo. Alikuwa kwa maandamano. Sasa mimi nataka nikuulize wewe ni mbunge umechaguliwa. Siku inafutiliwa mbali madeni ya wale watu wa sukari ambao wewe unawakilisha, you are not there. Siku ya kupitisha sugar bill yenye huyu Wangwe alipeleka bunge, haukukuweko. Siku ile niliweka pesa 1.7 billion ambayo sasa nitalipia wakulima, haukukuweko. Alafu unakuja kuniambia Kiingereza hapa, hiyo ni ujinga, mimi siwezi kubali. Ama namna gani jameni? Lazima tuambiane ukweli.
You know, what we're looking at is not essentially that particular story. Mungai, we're not looking at the story. No. No. Please don't look at the story. Yesterday when we were sitting, Bagala, I'm going to come to you. Yesterday when we were sitting, we said, if he's going to talk about an issue that the country is facing right now, it's got to be about IEBC. Everybody was waiting for him to speak on it, because once the court ruled, there was a finality on it. And he knew very well that indeed people would have wanted to hear him talk about IEBC. But guess what he's talking about? He's talking about rogue members of parliament. Somebody asked this question. The same energy that he was talking about this issue for sugar, why couldn't he address the members of parliament who failed to table that NATCO report, at least on one area, IEBC, and agree on it as quick as it was? Because last year, when he was given that report, he said, done and dusted, I'll make sure that this is implemented as fast as it can get.
First point of correction,
yes.
The NADCO report was tabled in Parliament.
Yes.
It's just that it has not been discussed, because by the time it was coming to the floor of the House, the House was going for recess.
Does it?
Okay, and the House has just come back.
Does it?
So I'm sure the House Business Committee will allocate it its due place for discussion. Okay.
Mungai, I get you, but it's not even been mentioned.
No.
They came back on 12th.
No, it's okay. They came back on 12th. But you see, the House Business Committee has to prioritize. And I can tell you, key amongst the priority is the housing levy bill.
Yes.
You know, that takes precedence because then that is the flagship of the Kenya Kwanza government.
Does that?
But I like how the president...
Sorry, Mungai, and I'm sorry for interjecting you, but aren't you well surprised at the energy and the quickness as to how they're talking about the housing levy?
I'm not surprised.
Yes.
It's what do you call it? That word, exhilarating. It's a nice thing that the energy is being directed towards the right things, as opposed to things that keep us going around in circles. So it's not a surprise to me. It is expected of the members of parliament to pursue an agenda which is at the heart of government.
That's it.
And that's the House levy. That's the House levy bill. But as to the clip that you have played, and as to the priority the government should take, or rather the president should take in terms of matters of the nation, I believe the president in matters of context was spot on, because he was answering to a member of parliament who had he had been given podium to speak, by the way, and when he was given a podium to speak, he went ahead to lecture the government on its failure, especially with regard to the sugar companies. And the president was just responding and saying, look, do not become the politician who's hypocritical and who stands to speak to the people, but when it really matters, which is in the House, and that is where you are elected to go and debate bills in parliament, you're no show, you're nowhere to be seen. And I'm glad he called them out, because the reality is, when we vote for a member of parliament, we vote for them to go to the floor of the House and debate issues that are relevant to the progress of the people of Kenya. Now, we do not elect you to stand on podiums and funerals every weekend to preach things which you would have debated on the floor of the House. And therefore, I concur with the president and his sentiments that it is high time the members of parliament go back to the House and debate matters that are of national importance.
Like the IEBC issue, that has seen some constituents lack representation on the national houses.
But you see, the court has already pronounced itself on the matter. Remember, the president was supposed, you see, when we started with the Cherela 4, and then we ended up with the other 3 whose timelines lapsed in accordance to their mandate. Now, the president was supposed to go ahead and constitute a panel to interview the IBs, to interview, whoever was supposed to, the candidates,
which he did.
But then, remember at that time, is when we got into the system of maandamano. And part of what maandamano, the issues that were raised by the ODM team was one, cost of living, and secondly, the constitutional of the IBC interviewing panel. Those 2 issues were critical. Now, the president, in the spirit of cohesion and goodwill, and in the spirit of having a cohesive country, he allowed the debate of how we were to constitute the IEBC panel. And therefore, we cannot then go back and say, look, the president was wrong. No, because in the president's wisdom, he constituted his team, the Kenya Kwanza team, and the Azimio team constituted, led by Wandai, and our team led by Ishongwa, to go and have a discussion. And part of the discussion, part of the outcome of the discussion was the constitution of the IEBC interviewing panel. And that report has been, the NADCO, which is the NADCO report, has been tabled in parliament for discussion. And what I told you when we were starting is that, when we were beginning the show, is that the House Business Committee is going to allocate time for the discussion of that report.
That's it.
It's simple and straightforward.
That's it. But just take 15 seconds to answer this, because I want to cross over to Ragalo. But are you then surprised by the president's silence on this particular issue for IEBC? He's not spoken about.
But why does the president need to pronounce himself on a matter that is before parliament?
Because there's a man who's saying, I'm going to the street.
No, but what do you mean there is a man threatening to go to the street? Let the man go to the street. I mean, what?
I had not finished.
Yes, Ragalo. That's it.
Before we went for the break, I was giving you one of the 4 ways to become the president of Kenya.
That's it.
You have to control parliament. You are not parliament, basically. You have to control courts. You have to control police. And then you have to control. One, you have to be the right tribe.
Yes.
You either have to be a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu to become a president of Kenya. Because in this country,
that's a fallacy. That's a lie.
It is a truth.
No,
in
that's
this
not
country,
a truth.
when we go on 12th December, that Kona Jamhuri Day, I keep asking myself, are we celebrating 60-something rule of 2 tribes, or are we celebrating the unity of Kenya? That question, I've never known the answer. So to me, for you to become a president of Kenya, Simba, you are not in the category. Mungai is in the category.
Mungai, you're in the category.
I am not in the category. You have to be a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu to become a president of this country.
That's it.
If you are born out of these 2 tribes, you ngangana any other thing, governor and going down to MCA, but not presidency. So that is done. So those are the 4 criteria of becoming a president of this country.
That's a lie.
Going to, when the housing was brought, I told you the housing was not taken to parliament. The parliament did not use their power to look at it, pass it, give it to planning to give us the physical figures that we require, and planning to tell us, hey, for the housing we have 20 billion, we need to borrow 100 billion. So by the time we are borrowing money, borrowing from internal borrowing and external borrowing, we should be having a figure that this is what we are looking for the housing. I've read papers, and I don't know how much is the cost of housing. That by the time we are finishing, we should use 20 billion to finish the houses. No, it is amorphous. So is it not a parameter to steal? Yes. Is it not a parameter for other people to gain money? A group of so-called the guys controlling the nini. So is it a way of we were talking about state capture. Is it not state capture? Where now you cannot question because you even don't know. That is how we didn't know anything about the railway. Standard gauge. How it started in RUTO government. RUTO. Let me say, and remember that. And how it ended. How money changed from this billion, ikapandishwa ikaingia bilioni ngapi, it never went to parliament. So we don't know who ate what went to whose pocket, no one. So this one, the president must make noise. Because kuna watu kadhaa watakosa kakitu. Bro, IBC hakuna mtu anakula kakitu. No. So why would I pronounce myself?
Is that why it's silent?
But why is he not? Why did he, when the court says it is unconstitutional to tax people, to take their land, tax them, then sell them the house, as they also keep on being taxed as they finish the loan of the house, it is unconstitutional. The next minute, the president was on top of a vehicle. And he went further and said, is it itajengwa? Hata kama koti itasema nini? Wetangula running, now he's going to do what? To appeal. Wetangula is appealing what? Who is he? Wetangula is what? Wetangula is, he is the...
He's the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Speaker going to do what? Are you getting this? Who is supposed to go to court for the government? It's the Attorney General, brother. The chief government advisor, legal advisor, is the one who's supposed to go to court.
Yes.
But Weta is going to court.
Yes.
Now you can see what I'm saying. Weta is going to court as what? And when Weta is going to court, he's the representation of all other MPs because he's their chief. He talks for the MPs. So which means all the MPs are going to court for the housing. So MPs are eating also. I mean, I want to be stupid.
Even before,
I'm just thinking widely like any other Kenyan.
We're going to come back to that, Ragalo. Just maybe now, I mean, our topic this morning is RUTO IEBC tackle. Maybe he's not speaking about it because from the get-go, he knew that this is exactly what we're going to get to. Is that why he's silent?
Do you know, he has to be silent because the more days are going, favors the MPs and him. If IEBC is constituted, we are going to have boundary de-elimination. We are going to lose 67 parliamentary seats. Some of them should even die right now. The MPs who will not have to run again. We have constituencies that we know are not supposed to be constituted. They are village areas. So it is working for MPs. That's why nobody is talking in parliament. Ni moto. Ukiguza IEBC warudi ni kama unajifuta kazi. Unafutisha watu 67 job. Na this boundary vile imepita miaka 12, it is a blessing to some MPs. Hii boundary last election tungena na boundary mpya. Othaya would have gone. There is nothing like Othaya constituency under that. I'm not saying it's wrong to have Othaya. I'm saying under the new boundary delimitation that is supposed to be done, Othaya should die. And many other constituencies. So now, if IEBC is rightly constituted, so these people want to create a crisis, bro, for us to have an IEBC near to election, so we cannot have a boundary delimitation, so we'll have all these constituencies coming back. Can't you see? It may not even be RUTO. It may be the same MPs we are talking about who are...
is that why you're putting silence from both ends? Yeah. Because if it was as important as they would have already gone to the National House and said, we need to talk about this, isn't it?
There are constituencies that will die in Nyanza.
Yes, they are. Even in Lamu.
Lamu East is going.
It's 18,000 constituents.
Yes. Actually, Lamu East, my ward, where my friend, I come from, Biashara ward, has 42,000 voters. It is a constituency times 2 Lamu. So we should have 2 constituencies in Biashara ward. Lamu is 18,000. I'm telling you, there are 2 brothers right now. They hold together because of a common enemy. Common enemy is the IEBC document in Parliament.
Yes.
If this IEBC document, which is NADCO, they handle it now, their constituents, their people will not get constituent. They are going to lose seats. Actually, they'll finish the term knowing mimi sisimami. Hata watapigiana kwa heri in Parliament. They'll have the last, what we call the last address in Parliament. So that is what is going on. It may not even be RUTO. It will be these MPs who fear going away. So the other MPs are helping them to survive.
That's it. So is Raila Amolo Odinga fighting this fight alone then, Ragala?
No, he's not fighting. Raila is not fighting.
Look, he's gone back to the street. Hold on.
No, if you look at the delimitation of boundaries, let's see the constituencies that might go, okay? Vihiga will go.
Vihiga. And that is ODM.
Budalangi
ODM
will go. Bura will go.
Bura ya uko Tana River.
Yes, Tana River. We will have Kilome, that will go.
Ukambani.
Voi will go.
Voi,
Saku will go. Mvita will go. North Hor will go. Laisamis will go. Lamu East and Lamu West will go. Now, those things will go. And I told you when you were discussing this issue that there's nothing as sensitive as delimitation of boundaries. Because what you're doing, sometimes you're dividing communities along a line. Sometimes you are taking over a constituency and merging it with others. Okay? And merging it with others. Now, what you are doing by merging it is that you're removing a member of parliament who is existing and taking that, for instance, let me say, give an example, okay?
Take Ruiru and Juja.
Yes, take Ruiru and Juja and merge them.
Ruiru be part of Juja.
Yes.
So Ruiru is called Juja constituency.
It's called Juja constituency.
Like it was. So Kingara automatically doesn't have a constituency. So we'll have to ngangana with Koimbori for Juja and Ruiru in the next election.
And you see, that is a challenge. And you see that's a challenge because then the MP for Ruiru will not sit down and watch you take his constituency to be merged by another. So it's a political quagmire
So,
for both, actually for both the president and the opposition leader. This is a matter, and that's why I told you, the easiest compromise for this, especially for the 67 constituency, the easiest compromise is to amend Article 89 of the Constitution on delimitation and Schedule 6 so that you protect the 27 now, those 67, so leave alone first the 67 that might be lost. Protect the 27 and push the date for delimitation from March 5th this coming month. You can push it to another 10 years.
That's what I'm telling you.
Then that way there is a compromise. Everyone is happy for now.
That's it. So this NADCO will not pass.
That's it. So the question is,
if it doesn't pass now, what?
That's what I'm asking. So if it doesn't pass now, what?
This is a bill.
Yes.
Remember, NADCO is a bill.
That's it.
It's nothing else other than a bill. So if it doesn't pass, so you cannot extract even a comma from a bill. You know the worst thing about a bill, you cannot footer even a full stop. So if this bill in a kwamanga, like now the NADCO, do you know why it is hot? Because 67 constituencies are going. So what are you doing? You are creating MPs who are going to fight each other. Ebu niambie now 67 MPs merge to another 67 somewhere. So that is basically 100 and something MPs wakipigana.
So Ragalo, could you paint a picture then for us as we move away from this particular issue? Actually, not moving away from it, because there's another area that you spoke about Wafula Chebukati. One Musalia Mudavadi has pronounced himself on this particular issue. So could you paint a picture then, if indeed the members of parliament would not wish for this particular report to go through so that we have these commissioners by BC, then why is Raila Odinga fighting it? He should be quiet about it.
No, Raila is using the constitution and the time frame that is there.
Yes.
The time frame says we should have this document. We should have IBC because we have things that are supposed to be done. One thing that are supposed to be done, we should have elections of areas. No, kuna MCAs wenye waliyekufa 3 months after election. Kuna mali hakuna MCA forever. Kuna MPs sahi wana miaka 2 hawana MP, like huku, what do you call this, Garissa area, northern.
Yes, there's an MP dead on a road.
Road accident, yes.
So there are people who are losing so much because of this, and life is life. Others may die. I'm not saying they will die, and many I think can happen. We could even lose high-ranking people, even high-ranking guys who we may not want. But now, if that happens and we don't have an IBC, how do we handle ourselves? So sometimes we look at things politically. We don't look in the humane. So now, Raila is saying, hey guys, we are going to be bad in time. So if you are bad in time, what does the Constitution says?
Yes.
Constitution says, if you are bad in time, you're going to have a political crisis. By the way, ikifika March, we are going to have a problem now.
Oh, definitely, yes.
And what does a bill say? There are bills that says, ikifika deadline, and at that time you have not agreed on it, the former ruling becomes law. So what happens now? If at all, by March 5th, we've not gone to discuss this.
Yes.
Is it that we are going to have automatically those seats are gone? You know, there are those areas in government that says so. That if it deems ifike wakati, like now, when President Ascension, if the president does not assent into a bill, in 14 days before anything happens, that bill becomes law. With him ascending or not ascending.
Yes.
Could it be that will become law? Maybe we are living at nature. But the issue is, we are living at nature. Every 10 years, we are having what? A census. A census goes with the boundary. Every census, we have a boundary because things change. Some areas are merged areas, we keep changing boundaries. Like now, I'm giving you Ruiru will be merged with some places even in Kiambu, because some parts in Kiambu will come to Ruiru at some parts of Juja, because Ruiru should be bigger now. Yeah. Because now it is becoming a problem to live there. I'm being honest. In another 10 years, I don't know what wataishi kwa wapi, because every area imefurika. So now what will happen? If we sleep on this, because it's a hot potato to handle for the government.
Yes.
So what is Raila doing? He's throwing hot iron. Chukua. How will the government juggle it? The juggling in the government is going to be difficult, because the government will be forced to form and to follow the law. Following the law is, let's have IBC. IBC tu enao basi sasa, hata kama itakuwa the way Raila wants it or the way whatever wants it, let's have IBC. Immediately we have IBC boundary. Immediately we have boundary, my friend, tutalimana hapa kwa boundary,
that tutasahau shida zetu sasa za Ruto na nini na nani na nani, then either we will lose 67 constituency or we will have it. Depends on now the constitution and how we read it. And that's why I'm telling you, some of these things require Attorney General. So who's the Attorney General in Kenya?
I'm going to come back. That's
we
exactly.
have one. You see, and I told Justin Muturi, a guy from Siakago.
And that's what we're going to coming back to now. Because, I mean, if that's what we are, some guy says, well, it's going to have to take them going back to the National House and then voting on extending that particular review period. Okay,
they will not extend because we'll be time bad of having IBC. IBC, we should have a constituted IBC 2 years before election. So when is 2 years before election? My friend, ni mwaka. Next year will be 2025.
Think about it, isn't it? All right, now, there's an introduction, there's a topic that this gentleman have introduced with Mr. Mgai asking whether we have an Attorney General. But it's an extension of a conversation that's already going. Now, Musalia Mudavadi is on record this weekend saying, guys, look here. All those people saying about the president wanting to appoint Chebukati, that's former IBC Commissioner Chair, as the Chief Justice, is like, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, the guy is fully qualified. And he was on record, which further then puts that particular assertion that indeed some people somewhere want CJ Kome out of that particular seat come back to life. Now, I'll tell you what it is. This is let's lay basis to this. I mean, last year, if you do remember, towards the end of 2023, there were fears that, one, the control of budget, Ms. Margaret Nyakango, was not a proper figure in this particular government. Guess what happened? A case from 12 years back came up and she was back in court, and now there are integrity issues that have been leveled against her. We do not know how that is going to end.
Now she's clean.
Guess what? CJ Kome. There is a case against her. Is this what we're building up to? Let's take a look at this story. Once we come back, talk about it.
There are people who want to always criticize the president. Oh, he has commented on the judiciary, he has commented on this. But I also want to say, before you remove the log in somebody else's eye, what about yours? Nokiri kuturiza amajira momoni yonde wa kuturiza gabe momoni yoyo. Nasema hivyo kwa sababu Judicial Service Commission is also independent, and Judicial Service Commission has the right to recruit anybody who qualifies to be a judge of this republic. So it is wrong for the Azimio leadership to start determining who should the Judicial Service Commission recruit. You cannot tell us that a son of the soil in this area, if they are interested, kama ni Chebukati ama nani, if he puts his bid for the position of a judge, that is the responsibility of the Judicial Service Commission, not the responsibility of politicians to try and direct the Judicial Service Commission. These kind of contradictions are not acceptable. Kwa hivyo, tusimame imara so that we can move forward and be able to move the country in the right direction.
Simple then. That is Mudavadi saying, if the president wants to appoint anybody to the position of Chief Justice, it's fine. I mean, saying the JS is right there. So, Mr. Mugai, here's the thing. It's current state of affairs. We do know the process of firing CJ, and we do know the process of appointing a CJ. All of a sudden, this conversation for appointment of a CJ is taking ground in the country. There's a case that the CJ has to answer. Again, it's on application of some tax case in the country, but without getting into the specifics of those particular cases, because now it's a case in court. Why are we talking about this, Mungai? Why are we talking about this particular issue, the CJ? Why?
I'll tell you something. Last week while you were here, we had a debate on dictatorship And we said dictatorship by executive is unacceptable, and dictatorship by legislature is unacceptable, and so is judicial dictatorship. You remember us having that conversation. But now I'll tell you for a fact. Last week, a gentleman went to, petitioned the JSC for the ouster of CJ Martha Koome. But I'll tell you for a fact, there's something interesting and cooking in judiciary concerning Martha Koome. Now, Martha Koome is caught between two battles: status quo and reforms.
And legitimacy.
So, and also legitimacy. There are people who've not accepted her.
Like me.
But then, don't worry, it's not a must that Tagalo accepts anyone for them to be CJ. But this is the challenge. They are reformist. So they are reformist and they are people of the status quo.
Yes.
Now, the CJ is caught in between because she's unable to pick a side. So she wants to look nice and stay in the middle ground. That is why when the president threatens that there needs to be reforms, she quickly runs
to State House.
To State House. Now, when Ahmed Nasir says, okay, this is, I think, is the direction the courts need to take, and Ahmed Nasir is just a senior counsel. Yeah. He's not like an appeal judge or attorney general or something. Then she takes sides with the status quo and says, let us ban this fellow from ever coming before us, and let us deny him audience, which in my opinion, when we discussed last time, I said is very petty. I mean, it's like, the way you deny a child a sweet in the house, and they throw tantrums and they go to bed, they refuse to eat. I am looking for a good word to pronounce myself at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Can I help you with the language? It is just say something like that.
But the thing is, I think we have reached a constitutional moment where I think the Chief Justice Martha Koome is not good for this country. And I'll tell you, always in a war, it's good to pick a side. Last time while I was here, I told you, I am not neutral. It's always good in life to pick a side. Yeah. Either you're with the reformers or you're with the status quo, but you cannot be both. And Martha Koome is struggling to stay in the middle and look good to both sides. Look, is there corruption in the judiciary as we speak today?
Has always been.
The answer is, if corruption has entrenched itself, its roots emanate from the judiciary itself. I can tell you, Simba, for a fact, every Monday, today is Monday morning, every Monday morning across this country, in all magistrate courts, there are hordes of young people that will be charged today through a magistrate for drunk and disorderly. That is a charge for young people in this country, and for loitering.
Loitering.
Those two today.
And another one, sorry, touting.
And yes. Touting. Today, Monday morning, there are hordes of young people, poor people, in magistrate courts that will be charged. Now, I can tell you that is a collaboration between the police, between the DPP, and the magistrate. And all of them, for you to be able to escape that dragnet, it is either you bribe the police at the station so that they release you, but because most of Kenyan people are poor, they will be taken to court on a Monday morning. Now, when you go to court, you have an opportunity to bribe the DPP, and you have an opportunity to bribe the magistrate. When we speak about corruption in the judiciary, these are issues that we are blindsided to. And these are issues that affect the ordinary Kenyans. So is there corruption in the judiciary that we need to deal with? The answer is absolutely yes. And remember, the higher you go in the hierarchy of the judiciary, when you come from magistrate, principal or chief magistrate, you go to high court, all the way appeal, the higher the amount you will be asked for.
Yes.
Is this a conversation as Kenyans we are willing to have? The answer is yes, we need to have this discussion. Now, is Martha Koome ready for that discussion? Absolutely not. She would rather maintain the status quo that you cannot rebuke the judiciary, you cannot criticize them. She would rather speak in front of emissaries and ambassadors and stamp her authority on judicial independence. No one is denying judicial independence. What we are saying is the reality is that there is corruption in the courts.
Where's that evidence?
And Mother Koome and Chief Justice Mother Koome is not the right person to tackle judiciary, to tackle a corrupt judiciary.
Is Chebukati the right person to tackle judicial
corruption? No, it could be anyone. It could be anyone. I mean, Chebukati is a Kenyan citizen.
But that's what we are this morning then. Ragalo, is Chebukati the right person to tackle judicial corruption?
Brother, this is historical.
Yeah.
And historical in this sense. Any government, pure government, that has just come in, that doesn't want entanglement of the former government, must, and I'm telling you, must change the judiciary. Must change the armed forces hierarchy. Must change the police hierarchy.
Yes.
The armed forces hierarchy came just few weeks after the election. We were all watching. Let's see Kenya tafanya. Tuone kama huyu mtu wetu atakuwa. The law says and the army says you have to follow these rules. These rules were formed by Tonje, and Tonje says this is how they will share leadership in the army. We want to see if you're going to go against. So he didn't go there. Like, okay, now we watch. Now that one is finished. Now let's go to police. Of course, the police was changed. Whole hierarchy of police has changed. Plus the former regional leaders were changed. Some of them retired. Very new people. Even provincial administration. The wanaitangwa nini hawa county commanders were changed. Actually, some were changed even a few weeks ago. Around 11 or 12 were given new jobs. So now you finish the hierarchy of the provincial administration and the police. Now it's judiciary. When Kibaki came in, and this one the younger guys must listen who are watching. When Kibaki came in, Kibaki instituted changes in the judiciary.
Yes.
Radical surgery.
Radical surgery led by former governor Nyeri. What is his name? The governor, not Nyeri, but Meru. Oh, the one that left the other day.
Kiraitu.
Muruge.
He was actually the leader of constitutional affairs and what have you, but then before Nani.
Yes.
So there are people who left. Judge Kwach left, and others. Actually, Kwach didn't even wait to go through the JSC. Who was sitting in the JSC? Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. Unless we forget. When you see Nasir Abdullahi talk, he knows what JSC is and he knows how it is. So right now, Uhuru didn't change the courts. Why? He got a succession. It was not a pure election that gives a new group. Uhuru was a succession. Nimekupatia watu tuendelee. And that's why when Uhuru came, there were no much changes in the Uhuru leadership. Kimunya is the same Kimunya. Nani. There was continuation in Uhuru leadership. So it was working well for Uhuru because he got the continuation. RUTO is a radical change. Election, I need to start afresh. So in starting afresh, and I said, you have to control these arms. So it's now the arm of judiciary, and I'm telling you, judiciary must go. That's the reality, unless people forget history. And basically that's why I said, I love history. I'm a student of history.
Yes.
I'll bring you a story that brings you the real. So this leader of judiciary, CJ, will go. Why? He's of a former regime. The other arms of government of a new regime. But now I have a one for the former regime. This one for the former regime will have to give me space because I don't trust the former regime people. I have to get my own people. Are you getting this? So, CJ has done anything wrong? No.
Yes.
No, what
is that the only point that you guys do not agree on? Because I thought that was a conflict. I mean, that's
Has she done anything wrong? No.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes.
What has she done wrong is because she's not a member of the elite that is here. So now, why is she leaving? Actually, she's not the one leaving alone. Even the deputy will go.
Philomena Melo.
Yes. By then, the whole group will go. The whole group will go. We need to have a new group in that hierarchy. So what is going to happen? If CJ goes, which is the most difficult to go, you have to create a way that CJ must go, which is now coming, which I said it is going to be, CJ will go. But me, I feel no pain, nothing at all about the CJ goes, because we were abused in her court. No. If she was the prefect of other courts, she would have said, no, that language is not good. Even if there is a loss, don't abuse them. We were called names. So I would say, if she makes noise, I will still say, that is a smoke screen, the one she said to us. The other day, last week, she said, ati tushikane pamoja, we create a government that nini, ashikane na watu yake. She should not even be addressing some of us. Ashikane na nani? She cannot even call a meeting I go. To do what in her meeting? She called us names. We remain those names.
No, but it was not names.
It was names.
It was description of a process.
So when you describe a process, who is the person who wrote the process? If you say this papers are, if you say this is hogwash and stupid, so that person who wrote it is very stupid.
You want to tell me Pacamiero disco is a little disco?
Pacamiero disco. So, brother, judiciary will have to be expunged. This is the radical surgery of Kibaki.
Yes.
And RUTO is doing any other person would do to have the control of the government. What is RUTO looking at? RUTO looks at him going back as a president in 2027 to 2030, whatever. Then from there, another person will come and do the same. Not that it won't be done the same. What did Moi do when he came in after Kenyatta? Njonjo ran like a hot antelope. Njonjo alitolewa haraka sana. Akina Nyiva Mwendwa, what happened? Did they wait to be sacked? So why are we saying that Ruto anatoa watu wenye haikuwa ifanyika? Actually the system, the thing goes the same. If Eric becomes a president today, mimi hata huyu Eric sita kumuona barabarani, nitampeleka Uganda because he's not supposed to be. I'm giving an example. You just remove them.
But here's a question. Bagalo, take a minute to respond to this because that's where the conversation then begins. But the man who's being fronted here is Wafula Chebukati.
No, it's not Wafula. It's not Wafula. Wafula ni smoke screen. The CJ of Kenya is Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. The Attorney General is Lenaola. Those two seats will change. Chebukati is being brought to play as mind game. The government will always give you a mind game, what you want to hear. But I'm telling you, Chebukati is going to be a discussion for and against, so that we waste time, then all of a sudden, Abdullahi.
Mr. Mungai, could you paint a picture? It looks as if the CJ, currently as it is, when met the president at State House, some goodies that came from the executive, additional judges, increased budgetary allocation, as well as mobility, or given a lot of vehicles from now. You like to think that if there was a problem in that particular, setup, everything is already ironed out, and they looked as if they've said, okay, tuende tufanye kazi. There's even a report that is supposed to come on how they're supposed to fight corruption in their respective arms of government. That is the judiciary, the legislation, and the executive, So my point is, what has she done wrong?
Well, I'll tell you for a fact, there is a question you've asked about first before I come there, about Mudavadi endorsing Chebukati for Chief Justice.
Yes.
I keep saying that, politics is about also context. You see, they were in the western region.
Yeah, Tena Bungoma.
And
Chebukati is from Bungoma.
Where Chebukati hails from.
Yes.
And so the people would feel good when Chebukati
is announced
announced as the next
front runner
in a Chief Justice position. That does not exist.
Does Chebukati know?
But it's not necessary that he should know. You know, sometimes in life, you know, people just call you for, are you interested in this? You know, head hunting is possible, okay?
Yes.
What Mudavadi is just doing is saying, look, as the discourse continues,
yes,
we have a man here in the name of Chebukati that you would like you to consider.
And he's jobless.
And he's jobless as we speak now.
He's jobless.
I've been seeing him giving speeches here and there. You know, he's a man without a job.
Yes.
And very soon there might be a vacancy in the Chief Justice job. So it is good to prepare the people of Mulembe Nation that we have a potential candidate in the name of Chebukati. But as to whether he will ever make it to the cut, the jury is out there, okay? But the truth is the man is qualified. And in terms of the administration as is, the truth is the man has delivered. And you know, politics is paid through loyalty. And he has been loyal. He will get his reward in due time. As to how that reward looks like, as I said, the jury is out there. But let us come back to your question on what Justice Koome has done wrong to warrant her removal. There is a petitioner, and the petitioner has alleged different things. I do not know whether the merits or demerits thereof.
Yes.
And that will go through the JSC, which will then recommend a tribunal be formed by the president. But I'll tell you the fallacy sometimes of that process is that even when the tribunal recommends your ouster, you can still appeal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would actually declare whatever it is that has come through the entire process as null and void and could actually reinstate you. And that is why I was saying last time, we created a constitution where Moi had alikuwa ametukalia sana. We did not want anything to do with executive amassing power. So we did anything possible to take away the presidential powers, and unfortunately, we loaded them to the judiciary. Now the challenge is, when you have a rogue judiciary, you have no recourse. And I explained to you last time here, even parliament, when they make law, they must be assented to by the president, and the president can actually reject them, forcing parliament to raise 3/4 to pass the bill as was, okay? I told you here that parliament can make laws which judiciary could declare unconstitutional.
Yes.
I also told you here, which it has many a time,
Yes.
And I told you here that the executive can make a decision which can be rescinded in judiciary. The judiciary can rescind a decision which the judiciary has exercised those powers many a time.
Like the
housing levy.
Yes. Give a good example.
But I asked you on this bench, who is the watchdog for judiciary? If judiciary today amassed all the powers of the executive and judiciary and the legislature, where does the buck stop? Because Article 1 gives us as Kenyans, you know, the power belongs to us. But then how would we exercise that power? Because as an individual, I can exercise my power to recall a member of parliament. I can exercise my power at the ballot to remove a president. But then how, as an ordinary Kenyan, do I exercise my power to deal with a corrupt and rogue judiciary? Because even if I was to petition the JSC, the Supreme Court would still have powers to rescind the decision that would have been taken as a result of that process. And I told you, if, and God forbid, one day we have you saw Maraga the other time dissolving the whole, asking the president to dissolve the whole of the parliament.
Yes.
I told you of an example last time. Judiciary, the Supreme Court was going to sit and postpone the 2022 elections based on the fact that IEBC had not legally put in the clerks and everyone. And I told you that it took for Justice Mwilu's driver to be sick. She could not come to court. I told you that it took Njoki Ndongo lacking a plane ticket from Mombasa to come and sit on the bench. They were going to put us into a crisis. So who audits the judiciary? That is a question I asked. But moving away from there, what wrong has Justice Koome done? And my answer is this. She may not have done right or wrong as an individual.
Yes.
But the challenge is, I do not want to say she's incompetent. I want to look for a word that is...
No, you've already said it. Let's continue.
I want to look for a word that is...
Can I say for you? Can I say for you? Can I say she's incompetent? A competent judge does not abuse the people who bring judgment. Who seek judgment. You don't abuse them.
That is one way of
so that is incompetence.
But I also said her flip-flopping attitude does not inspire confidence in the judicial officers.
Yes.
Today she's running to State House. Tomorrow she's telling Ahmed Nasir. I mean, how petty can a court be that it cannot entertain criticism? Ragalo, how many times have we sat on this bench and you have said unprintable words against the president? And yet, you can go to a government hospital today and get services regardless of whether you abuse the president right, left, and center. How many times have we sat here?
Yes.
How many times have we sat here
and criticized things against Raila and still you go to Kisumu?
And still I go to Kisumu.
Yes, and come back.
And even we sit here and criticize members of parliament and still nothing happens to us. But judiciary, but no, by the way, when you criticize Raila, you cannot go to And yet, Ahmed Nasir criticizes the judiciary, and yet they can't give him audience. How petty? How petty can the judiciary get?
Here's the thing, though, that you, Ragalo, that you got to look at. We have 6 minutes for this particular, and I want you to really candidly address it. Ragalo, I do get you that you are saying that yes, the regime has to change and all this. But then at the back of what? I mean, we've seen a push and pull between the executive and the judiciary that led to that meeting at the State House. Number two, I mean, the way the law, the way the Constitution was envisioned in 2010 is that the supreme authority in any land has to be the courts. That even as we talk about them, we gotta be careful on how we talk about them. That if we're gonna talk about them, that you gotta be backed up with some very good evidence so that you don't injure public confidence when the courts are going to make proper rulings and decisions for you. But is that not what we're doing? Now, all of a sudden, we seem to have a problem with Mother Koome, and she's got to go.
Let me tell you, for you to become a medical doctor, what are you supposed to have performed in Form 4? Exemplarily well. You can't even have a B. You have to have an A. It is the group that the community looked at with awe and say, wow, this is a cream of education in this country.
Yes.
When a doctor tells you you have a something on you that I need to remove, or when you are told, hey, take down your panty, I want to inject you, do you question? Who has ever questioned an injection? You actually start preparing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You actually giving, running away, but you are giving. You don't question.
Yeah.
If the injection go bad, what happens? Or if there's some medical legal issue, what happens? The whole paper writes about rogue doctors, rogue nurses, whatnot. We even have maandamanos that have been done in hospitals.
Does that?
Bro, ever since you were born, have you ever seen a maandamano against judiciary in Kibera law courts?
I think you were giving me evidence this morning that there's a patient here who's died because of the wrong injection, and we're saying it's right there.
Okay.
That 6 patients in a particular hospital died because of the negligence of that doctor.
I'm giving you an example because they also wrong prisoners who didn't do a mistake and they are rotting in jail, who are doing 20, 30 years. Have you ever seen, and it's only one time when women decided, and one of these women is the mother to Koigi wa Wamwere, decides to do a maandamano herself.
She undressed the two.
Na akaongea Kikuyu mingi akilia kwa koti. You understand?
Yeah.
But in the day she died, she actually died, and the body had to stay in the morgue for 3 years awaiting the son to get out of jail to come and bury. There is no any other time, only Wangari Maathai and the other group in Uhuru Gardens who decided to go naked because of their children. Because of their children. Have you ever seen a maandamano in court, not because of their children, but Kenyans decide, hii koti tuiandamanie? If you've ever seen, tell me. But you've seen maandamano against the doctors, isn't it?
Yes.
And even court taking the courts making judgment on doctors, isn't it? And you pay highly. Even hospitals pay highly. Have you ever seen a maandamano against the government? Yes. It's happening all the time. Have you ever seen maandamano against the police? Yes. We make maandamano, we throw stones because a police has done a mistake. Have you ever seen maandamano against the teachers? Yes. The other day teachers were frog marched from our school. But have you ever seen maandamano against the courts? No. Who is supposed to maandamano against the courts? We said we don't agree with the judgment, but we'll respect the court because we decided in Kenya that the point of our brain sovereignty, where you can go when things are tough, is in court. So all the court judges, you believe this is the judgment that is done even by God himself seated in heaven. So you either agree, even if you disagree, you agree. If we were to do maandamano, were we supposed to do maandamano against RUTO? We were supposed to do maandamano against Koome, for one, abusing us, I still insist. Two, judging against us with very hard, harsh words. So when you ask me about legitimacy of Koome, I'm telling you, she is thoroughly 107%. 7 because of 7 days in the week. Illegitimate.
Okay, let me get an end in there.
Before you end it.
15 seconds.
15 before you end it.
15 seconds, yes.
I'm talking to Kenyans because I'm a Mediki here.
Yes.
Allow me. Kenyans, you check on your Daily Nation today, page 2 and 3. Cancer is the 3rd leading killer in Kenya. Your government brought aflatoxin maize on you. You ate sugar that was doctored, which whatever. We've been doing wrong things in our country. Even what the government does for us is not right. Right now, cancer is the 3rd leading and the biggest killer coming again in the near future. We need to be careful in how we live, what we eat, and how we take care of ourselves. That's all I can say. Then secondly, we refused BBI, which was going to sort out the boundary issue, and decided Uhuru must go plus Raila, which they did. Right now, we have boundaries not taken care of, just because a BBI was coming to sort what could not be sorted by that government. Now, this is with us. It's either we bring back BBI to sort boundaries, or some constituencies are going to go.
There's no reggae.
We gotta end it.
We have switched off the radio. There's no reggae that we are playing anymore. BBI is done and dusted.
That's it. Guys, take them back to the time that you joined us right here this morning at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. Guess what? It's just for us to watch and see how it goes. My name is Simba Kiage. The hashtag is the morning drift. Let the conversation continue. Tomorrow is another good day for us to talk about more emerging issues in the country. Goodbye.
Kiage.